Hello, theme park goers. Welcome to episode number 25. Can't believe there's that many of this already. It's crazy. Time flies. Anyway, this is our not so average list, and this is my favorite Universal Orlando attractions. And my list doesn't have to be a ranking. I'm going to put together just some of my favorites, must dos. If you're planning to head over to Universal, which is my favorite park, spoiler alert, if you didn't listen to episode 1 yet, first off, why did you start with 25? And secondly, it's my favorite park. I love Universal Orlando. Both parks, as they stand at the moment, later on this year, in just a few months, they'll be opening their third or fourth, if you consider, what is it called? Volcano Bay, the theme park, since they branded as a water theme park. I'm not going to rank any in Volcano Bay at the moment or talk about too many of my favorites there. However, because they are very difficult names, I do want to do an entire episode on there. However, I can tell you over at Volcano Bay, it's very hard to remember. I usually just say the blue slide that goes up the side by Cabana Bay, or, I remember Oh No and Oh Yeah. Those are fun names. And the Krakatoa. Other than that, though, I cannot tell you any of, the names. They're very tough to remember. I know there's, the Fast Lazy River, or as I call it, the Crazy River. Anyway, we are off topic. Let's get back to the dry parks, as they call them over there. The dry parks being Universal Studios, Florida, the original park, and then Islands of Adventure, and then soon to come, Epic Universe. But let's talk about both parks and some things that you could definitely do, definitely can skip, and things that are must-dos on my list when I go to the park. The first ride I would recommend is Revenge of the Mummy. So Revenge of the Mummy is over in the New York section of the park. This is housed where the former Confrontation, that's tough one, attraction was housed. And fun part about this ride is there is the track from the old ride is built into the ceiling. And if you can kind of see the ride with the lights on towards the end of it, where it's a little more bright, you can look up and still see the track in there. I only got to do this ride once as a kid, the Confrontation, and I remember thinking it was so cool. You hung from a cable car from the ceiling, and you're supposed to be, I think it was in Queens, and I should know this, being from New York, but I'm not from this part. Staten Island? I don't know. You're on that cable car, and then Kong attacks you, and it was a cool ride. Apparently a lot of maintenance issues with it, so unfortunately didn't really last. However, they did do a great replacement here. Unlike some of the rides where they took out good rides and put in not so good rides. Looking at you, Fast and the Furious. But this is a great ride, a great addition to the park. It's been there for a long time and it still holds up. They took it down for a long refurb, which is good because that means they gave it some love. These are based off of the Mummy movies, the Brendan Fraser ones. And if you were thinking, oh, it's not based off of the Tom Cruise one, who are you? You saw that movie? No, I saw the Tom Cruise Mummy movie. But yeah, this is the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. It's a weird storyline. You're supposed to be going to the museum, but you're on the set of the movie. But the curse is real. If you unless you wear the Magi, you're protected. And so then you go on a tour, and then the mummy comes after you. And then at the end, Brendan Fraser gets a cup of coffee. It's a little all over the place, but it's a great ride. And it has a lot of cool different effects that started off slow as more of a dark ride, and then you go backwards, and then you turn, and then you launch, and then it goes to a fake unload station, which is really neat. There's fire effects, because Universal loves fire effects and water effects. There's a lot of cool elements to this roller coaster, and I would say it's more of an indoor story coaster, kind of like Gringotts. And it's intense, and a lot goes on. And it's a really cool car. You're in a I think it's 4 rows deep, 4 seats wide. So kind of like a big square box moving around. Very unique ride system. I did get to do the one over in Universal Hollywood, which is different, has a different story and a different layout. So that was kind of fun doing that one and kind of knowing how this one rolls and how that one is completely different. But overall, I think this is a must-do, and it's something that really has stood the test of time and is one of those rides that you're like, wow, that's a great ride. Wait, it's not really a new ride, but it holds up. Another ride that, in my opinion, holds up, this might just be me, E.T. So E.T. is the only surviving original attraction in the park, and to me it is perfect, and it should never be touched. Maybe it should get a little love. I think when people ride this ride, they have nothing, that they know about it. They go, what the heck did I just ride? And that's really dated. And yeah, it's dated. And yeah, it's weird. But it's a classic. And it's one of those classics that you just hope that never goes away. definitely go into it knowing that this is a ride that was built in the early 90s. An original opening attraction with the parks in 1990. Really hasn't been updated since. They definitely done a little love here and there, and definitely think it's a fever dream where you're in the movie and then it kind of turns to the sequel that never was and hopefully never will be, and you don't know what's happening. So if you don't know the ride, it is in a soundstage, so it looks like the old school kind of idea where you're, riding the movies, which was like the original idea for Universal, which I love and I miss. And Steven Spielberg introduces you and tells you you're going to give your name and you're going to go ride a bike and bring E.T. back to his family, because apparently only E.T.'s healing touch can help his entire planet. So who knew? Who knew E.T. had so much power? So the first half of the ride, you're on the bike and you're being chased and you're through the forest, and then you fly over the city and you're like, wow, this is just like the movie. And then everything turns and you blast off to E.T.'s green planet, where everything is terrifying looking and definitely not a well-maintained animatronic, and it's just weird and it's quotable. I even have the welcome home, you've arrived in my opening for this podcast because I love it so much. It's so bizarre. And then at the end, E.T. hopefully says your name. Sometimes, depends how he's feeling that day. And then you turn the corner and you're back on Earth. It's weird, it's fun, I don't know. People love the Peter Pan ride and compare it to it because it's kind of like that same flying attraction. It's 10 times better than Peter Pan, and it's usually much, much lower weight than Peter Pan, which I don't know what that's saying, but I think it's one of those must-dos. And for me, it's a must-do whenever I go. If I get to the park at opening, which I have done numerous times, everybody is running usually to like Gringotts, The Mummy, Rip Ride Rocket, and I'm running to E.T., which is great. I have a bike to myself. It's fantastic, but must-do when you're over there. Another must-do, in my eyes, is Gringotts. So Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts is the only Harry Potter attraction in this park if you don't count the train, which is, I guess you can, but this is like the big e-ticket attraction located over in Diagon Alley in the bank. Now, this is similar to the Mummy, but less intense as a story coaster. It is a fantastic ride and is one of those that you have to go on. All the Harry Potter rides are different, and that's why I'm so excited for Epic Universe, because I'm so curious to what their ride's going to be. I remember going on the original Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey over at Islands when it first opened, and being like, what is this ride? Like, I've never been on a ride like this with the arm, and you're going around. And then this ride opened, and it just didn't spoil it. And how it starts with the track break, spoiler alert, is such a cool and unique effect. And when you look around and how the tracks are never connected in different scenes, so it shakes you and moves you, and you go up and down and you launch, and it's a very cool ride. And as somebody who's a Harry Potter fan and knows the 7th movie, it's fun to know how you're parallel in the story and finding where you fit in and how, oh, I know which scene we're in. Oh, I know where we are. So unlike the other ones, which are a little more timeless, where you're more in the Harry Potter universe, this one is setting a specific time in the storyline, and you know exactly where you are. So if you are a Harry Potter fan and you know the movies, you will see exactly where you are. And you're hanging out with Bill Weasley, who you really don't get to see much. So, hey, what's up, Bill? Very random character to have in there and star at the attraction, but it actually works. And you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about Bill. Oh yeah, he does run the bank. So very fun ride. It is really cool too, because you get to the queue, to me, is part of the attraction, and you walk into Gringotts Bank. As somebody who went to the actual studios in the Warner Brothers and outside of London, I got to go to the bank set, and I was more impressed with the one at Universal than I was at the original, because this is a full scale. The ceilings, it was even like that when you tour the Diagon Alley set over in England. You walk around and it's just a set, so there's really no ceilings, or there's roofs, or and that's not themed. You can't go into the stores. The bank is kind of like half there because it's only what the camera captures. Here it has to be a full 360 because you are standing there and you're living in it. So to me, it was even more exciting here. Plus there's all the goblin animatronics, and there are not those in the studio since those were played by actors in the movie. But yeah, Escape from Gringotts, if you are a Harry Potter fan, you have to do this one. Plus, obviously, even if you're not a Harry Potter fan, go on it. You don't need to know the full storyline just to enjoy the attraction and all the uniqueness that there is inside this ride. Next up will be Men in Black. That'll be my next one for Universal. And a lot of people are probably like, oh yeah, Men in Black. I think it's one of those rides that it sits in the back of the park. It's an older franchise, but the ride really holds up. The show building is massive. If you went to Halloween Horror Nights this past year, you had to walk behind the entire building to get to two of the houses. So you saw how massive this building is. And the ride inside, you're like, oh yeah, this is a huge ride. It's a fun ride because it is kind of like Buzz Lightyear or Toy Story, but with actual gigantic sets that you're going through and not cardboard cutouts like Buzz Lightyear and no screens like Toy Story. It's full-on sets, and also you get to compete against the other car you're going against where they scan them and you're trying to shoot their car to get more points. It's one of those really re-rideable car rides, and that's what I think I like about it so much, is that every time it's a little bit different. If you're on the right side or the left side, you kind of get different ones to shoot at. You kind of are competing also against the other car, plus also competing against your car. So just one of those that are really re-rideable. I do think it needs a little love. I know it came back from refurb not too long ago. So I need to go rewrite it and see how much love it got. But I am glad it's still getting love in there. And I always recommend going on this one because it is fun for the whole family. And last for Universal Studios Florida isn't really an attraction. It's more of a show. But I'm going to count it because I think it's one of those, you should not miss this when you go. Especially if you go during the summer because it's indoors and air conditioning. This is the Bourne Stuntacular. Now, this is their attraction or show that replaced Terminator 2 3D. And this opened during COVID, so really flew under the radar. And a lot of people just don't really know it's there, seem to walk by it because it's really just a regular building on the side. And you don't realize how large it is in there. And a lot of people are like, Bourne? I don't really know the Bourne franchise. You don't need to. But the technology used in the show is fantastic. Don't get discouraged when you go to the pre-show and Julia Stiles starts talking and gives zero energy. Let that one slide and just realize it's a quotable pre-show where it's pretty bad. But once the show starts, it's very in your face. It reminds me of if Indiana Jones at Hollywood Studios was made nowadays, where it's a stunt show, but with high-tech modern technology. There's a giant LED screen in the back, and there's also props and a lot of different special effects. And the show is just technical, like very, very big budget, big show, lots of things going on, super impressive technology, and I highly recommend it. Plus, as I mentioned, indoors, sitting down in the air conditioning. If you can get there right before it's about to start, and you can get right into the pre-show, so you don't need to get there super early, don't have to wait. It's a long show, it's probably like 30 minutes. Do it. Go see the Bourne Stuntacular if you have not. And if you have, go see it again because it's really good. Let's pop over to Islands of Adventure. So Islands of Adventure, talked about this park a few times already on this podcast, and I do love this park. As I mentioned in other podcasts, this seems to be more of the people are going to Universal for a day. This is more like tourists from out of town will go to Islands when locals will go to Universal. Islands has a lot of the big IPs, a lot of the big names, a lot of the big rides, when Universal is more the subtle park. I am curious after Epic opens what it's going to look like and how it's going to shift. They already announced over at Studios they're taking down Rip Ride Rocket of September of this year, and we'll get a new coaster. So hopefully that'll help spike up that attendance. But you wonder what's next for Islands because they just got a lot of love in Islands. Let's talk about some of my favorite things at Islands, starting with Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, or just known as Hagrid's. Fantastic roller coaster. It's a family coaster, but it's crazy. It's just a fantastic ride. I mentioned on my other podcast about Islands of Adventure that this one does not take Express, so even if you have Express, you can't get onto it. Sometimes there's a single riders, but it really doesn't move that much faster because it is a 2x2. So it doesn't really move, unlike maybe like the Mummy, which kind of moves a little bit faster sometimes. This one definitely doesn't move as quickly, but you can still try it if it's open. And the only way to get on other than waiting is with a VIP tour. So you probably are going to be waiting, and it usually has a very long line. However, I will say it is worth it, and if you can get on it at night, it is even better. This ride is fantastic. It is replaced Dueling Dragons, which I definitely miss and definitely like Dueling Dragons. However, this one does fit well with the theming of the area. It has animatronics. It goes in different directions. I don't want to say too much in case you haven't been on it, but I highly recommend Hagrid's. Oh, here we go. Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. TM the ride. It's a great ride, and I definitely think that's the one you can't miss. The other one you can't miss in the park, though, is Velocicoaster. Velocicoaster is one they started building during COVID, and unlike other theme parks, Disney, they didn't blame COVID, and then they just kept working and they finished it. And Velocicoaster is a fantastic ride, and one of the best parts about it is they didn't knock down another ride to build it. They found space and they built around it. And it's always great when you can get a new ride and you don't have to lose another ride for that, because I definitely get upset when they do that. And it's definitely upsetting to lose a ride, even just for capacity for the park. Unless it's Fast and the Furious, that one can go. But Velocicoaster, basically, it's a non-stop rush from start to finish. You launch, you were in the paddocks, and you were in Jurassic World, even though the rest of the land is Jurassic Park. So it is a little weird. So just think about this as Jurassic area. But it is a great ride. And you launch, and then you go through the beginning, and then you launch even faster, and then you finish up the end of the ride. So it is once you sit down and you start moving, you're not stopping until unload. So it is a continuous good ride. There is a single rider line for this one also. Once again, just depends to move. I've tried single. It was definitely dependent on the grouper who's putting everybody in the rows of how fast it's moving or not. But highly recommend this ride. Another ride over at Islands is an original that opened with the park, would be Spider-Man, Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. This ride is, if you've been on Transformers, very similar to that one, however, to me, even better and holds up. The fact that this ride opened with the park is older than Transformers and the technology used. And the cool part is they put a lot of love into this ride, and they definitely have updated it and not just kind of let it sit. All the visuals have been updated, the videos, the effects, everything is just great. And every time you ride it, you kind of notice something different. Just like in the opening scene, when he jumps down on the ladder, if you take off your glasses, you can notice it's not a ladder he's jumping on that's on the screen. It's a prop ladder that is moving up and down with the motion of the screen. So just how they tie in different elements of the effects to really make you feel like it. People are like, wow, it looks like we're actually falling. Wow, it looks like we're going sideways. It looks like we're going up. It's a flat ride the entire time. Like your car is moving around, but you're not going up or down. There are elevators or lifts in the Transformers ride. However, Spider-Man, there's no lifts. So it's just effects. The walls are moving up or down for the effects. So overall, one of those things where you're like, wow, like this is probably like all those Imagineers that like got fired from Disney or left and came over here and were like, hey, we got plans. And Universal said, here's money, do what you want. And they did a great job. And now Disney made a Spider-Man ride, and it's not that great. You just kind of sit in a car and shoot webs at a screen. So, superior Spider-Man ride. Very curious what's going to happen with this one in the future, because there's all these rumors that Disney will take Marvel or they'll give up their rights to Marvel at Universal. And so you kind of worry about this ride, because obviously it's a screen-based ride, so you could change it. But this ride's pretty great and definitely a must-do. And also single riders, so check that out. Usually it actually moves pretty quickly because it's rows of 4, and I think it's like 3 rows of 4, so they seem to move pretty well. And then also I would say over at Islands of Adventure, this one's going to be like, really? Popeye, or it's really called Bluto's Barges? Barge Rat Bilges? The Popeye water ride. So it's like Kali River Rapids. It's one of the raft rides where you are facing each other in like the circle going through. You are going to get soaked. You will not come off this ride dry. So it's really fun to go on colder days and stand on the bridge. So if you see Me Ship the Olive, which is like the play ship that you can climb up, and actually there's water guns at top and you can shoot people with water who are on the ride. There's a bridge to the right where it's the boat's dumping out water, and if that's turned on, that's like the first water they hit. So you watch everybody. I remember I went a few weeks ago and it was cold, and this girl is like taking selfies, thinking she's all cool, her back's to it, and then the water just comes and like dumps buckets, and she's just like, oh, okay. I'm like, girl, well, first off, you're on a water ride, put away your phone. And secondly, you do not come off this ride dry. There's no possible way. The money they must make on those human dryers at the exit, it's insane. Go on this ride, but bring a change of clothes. I always prepare like, hey, if I'm going to Universal for water ride day, I'm packing a backpack, I'm changing, I'm doing all their water rides. You could pop around to Jurassic Park, Dudley Do Right, and Popeye, and then you could dry off and put on dry clothes, because nothing worse than walking around a theme park in wet underwear and wet socks. That sounds awful, especially on a cold day or on any day. So Popeye, definitely a great ride in that park. And then last but not least, so I have 5 for Universal, so I'll also do 5 for Islands. I will say Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. Now, this ride is definitely one that I got to be in the right headspace to go because it does make me a little dizzy as I'm getting older. However, the ride still impresses and it's still fantastic. And if you don't want to ride it but still want to go into the castle, you could ask the team members out front if there's a way to just tour it, and usually there's a side way up. The queue in itself is like going through the sets in England. Each room is different, but if there's not a line, you just kind of fly and go right onto the ride. And if you've never been on this ride, it's one of those that you're like, what is this technology? And the rumor is it's going to be similar technology for the Monsters Unchained coming to Epic Universe, which for me is my most anticipated at Epic Universe. So I like this ride, and I love Halloween Horror Nights. So Monsters meets Harry Potter ride technology? I'm in. I'm there. But let's talk about a few rides at Universal that you could skip. Unfortunately, yeah, they have some misses. And yeah, they hopefully will do something with these one day. But who knows, because they're more newer. Number 1, I think it's easy to say, Fast and the Furious. Not only skip it, just face the other way and walk, or give it the finger when you walk by. That's what I do half the time because I'm so upset that we lost Beetlejuice and earthquake/disaster for it. So we lost 2 attractions for one awful attraction. Rumor is it might be going away and they might be doing something with it and updating it. Since they are doing the roller coaster out in Hollywood, we can only hope because this ride isn't fast, isn't furious, and it isn't fun. I just made that up. The Jimmy Fallon ride, skip it unless you are a big Jimmy Fallon fan, but I have yet to meet one. It used to be fun because it had the queue where you could see the ragtime gals singing, but they are only there during peak times now. Sometimes # the pandas running around, but overall the ride is not the best. It's kind of when Universal was doing screen, and mediocre rides, and it seemed like this one kind of got greenlit because it was kind of, I guess, the energy, the cohesive energy. What do they call that? You know what I mean when it's like all together with one company? Anyway, so it's like NBC Universal wanted Jimmy Fallon in the parks, and they can do NBC in the parks. They've done the Today Cafe, which is great, and I'm still hoping they do an SNL bar, but Jimmy Fallon, you could skip it. Not only that, it replaced Twisters, which I love Twister. Ride it out. That was a great ride. And the fact that there's a new Twister movie out, Twisters, that's what I meant. The fact that they got rid of that and then made a new movie and that did very well. You're like, oh, bad timing. Come on. We want Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt back. And my last ride that you could skip, I'll say second to last ride. We'll add one more in. Minion Blast. That's their newest ride. If you call it a ride, it's a moving walkway. If you like standing and holding a heavy gun and facing a screen that is just kind of chaos and you don't really know where you're aiming at, then this is the ride for you. But if you don't like any of those things, this is not the ride for you. I'm somebody who loves the Minions, watch them all, love the Minions, but their 2 Minion rides are meh. And last but not least, I'll say Kong, the King Kong ride, Skull Island, Reign of Kong. This ride has this cool facade, a driverless vehicle on a invisible track, and the technology is fantastic. Until the ride starts, and then you're like, this is just the tram tour, basically. So if you've been over to Universal Hollywood, this is part of the tram tour, but they expanded this into a ride. This was in the same time that Universal was kind of building Fallon, Kong, and then they did like Fast and the Furious. So you can kind of see whoever was there was kind of just greenlighting these tram tour ones that were just kind of quick and easy and not cheap, unfortunately. So they spent a lot of money on it, but overall, a big build-up for not a big payoff. So definitely one of them that you can kind of walk by and don't waste your time. But anyway, that will be my list for my favorite, and I guess you could say not so favorite, Universal Orlando attractions. I will see you at the parks.